Hello, I'm Eleni Jokas, and this is Connecting Africa, a monthly show where we speak to the people and visit the projects transforming business on the continent. This month, I'm coming to you from the site of Expo 2020 in Dubai, where Africa will be very much in the spotlight. From October, every African nation will showcase their innovations and culture here in designated country pavilions, the first time in 170 years of World Expos. Expo 2020 is bringing the world together under the theme Connecting Minds and Creating the Future through Sustainability, Mobility and Opportunity. It's something all African nations are hoping to capitalize on, and therefore a perfect backdrop as we feature some of the continent's most innovative leaders. And we start in South Africa with energy and chemical giant Sasol.
I am Fleetwood Grobler, the CEO of Sasol, and I'm connecting Africa through innovating for a better world with our products, technologies and people.
Formed in 1950, Sasol describes itself as an integrated energy and chemical company. Spanning 30 countries, Fleetwood Grobler has been its chief executive since 2019. We took a stroll around its massive operation in Sasolburg, the location where it all started.
The site has evolved over time. We have repurposed the site in the 90s to be a chemical site producing chemicals only. And so there's been a lot of, I would say, reinvigoration in the roots where it all started.
And among many other things, when I sat down to talk to him, I wanted to quiz him more about how and why the company keeps transforming. Sasol is such an amazing example of taking a raw material like coal and gas and then completely processing it and producing a final product, essentially, that can be then used. How do we replicate this kind of model in other African countries where they have oil and gas and coal finds so that they can truly expand on their value chains?
Yes. So I think we also need to bring in the sustainability lens on this specific question you ask. And the reason for that is that today we will not invest in a coal to liquids facility just because of its carbon footprint. So, but what we can foresee is that the technology enables us also to use different type of feedstocks that will be sustainable in the future. So we've sharpened our focus on sustainability, and climate change is a cornerstone of our strategy, because we know it is an item that we can't wish away, walk away, run away from. We have to address it head on, and that is the crux of the matter. And so we are preparing ourselves to travel a pathway where we can have significant steps in our decarbonization of our processes in terms of using different feedstocks and eventually through renewables.
Are you exporting to other African countries or African businesses that operate outside of South Africa's borders buying your products?
Yes, we have quite a market presence in Africa, which we are growing. In West Africa, we have a couple of focus areas from where we supply mostly at this point in time industrial solvents. We export our polypropylene products into West Africa. But I'm mentioning West Africa now. I'm remiss not to mention all the neighboring countries in South Africa. So Botswana, Namibia, Lesotho, Mozambique, sort of the SADC countries, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Zambia, they all within reach of road, and we supply many products through that logistics systems into those countries as well, going broader than only the industrial solvents and polymers.
So when we talk about your transition, what are you thinking in terms of renewables and your hydrogen plays? I mean, how important is that?
So green hydrogen, of course, has to be made from renewable electricity. So the cost of renewable electricity is still in a downward trend. The low cost that they're now installing solar farms in other parts of the world, I see no reason why that can't be the case also in South Africa.
Do you think there's a chance that we could see infrastructure like this that Sasol has in other African countries? What is it going to take? to build, this is, and it's taken you decades, right? Is it something that countries should be targeting and aiming for?
I think when we look at the sustainability agenda globally, the imperative that all of us need to address is how do we get products developed, made and used with a lower carbon footprint. So that would be for me the crux. So if we can use technologies and renewables and sources of carbon that's sustainable, those would be the long-term areas that we should focus on to unlock value in Africa.
A fascinating insight into the need to constantly innovate. We stick to energy after the break as we speak to one of Ghana's most dynamic business leaders. Welcome back. Across Africa, there's a push to capitalize on all of its commodities and resources. And in Ghana, oil still remains a promising sector. It first struck oil in 2007 and started producing 3 years later. At the start of this decade, the West African country was producing around 200,000 barrels of oil per day. But new discoveries could see that figure increase significantly. And one of the most exciting companies is the Springfield Group, the first Ghanaian-owned company to produce oil in the country.
I think the most important thing about Springfield is us being Ghanaian. And one would ask why, and I say because it gives hope. It gives hope that a Ghanaian, a black African, can dream big and achieve that dream. It gives hope that we too can do it and do it better. We operate just like how any multinational, any super major will operate. We have a very lean team, however, very competent. And where we lack, where we need to bring in international support, we do bring in the international support. So Springfield can compete anywhere in the world with any other operator and yet get the same results and that any other operator would get. So when it comes to competition, Springfield is open for business. We are open to compete anywhere on the continent, anywhere in the world, and we think that we will be as successful in anywhere else, just as we have been in Ghana. Ghana, I always say this, that Ghana is actually the gateway to Africa. Ghana is open for business, and Ghana is welcoming Africans and foreign companies to come in and invest in Ghana. So Ghana, although have just been producing oil for the last 10, 11 years, currently doing about 200,000 barrels a day, has so much potential on tap, which gives room for Ghanaians and Africans and multinationals. I think Pan-African trade is very, very essential for the growth of Africa. More so over, Africans always think about exporting goods that they produce outside the continent. So this Pan-African trade agreement brings the platform that let's look at trading amongst ourselves. So if you are making something in Angola, perhaps it might be needed in Ghana. Have you looked at that opportunity? This means that what the leaders of Africa have done have now set the platform straight that, hey, youth, businesses, look at how we can trade amongst ourselves because we are about 1 billion people. Surely what is being made in one country perhaps could be used in another country. Clean energy basically is very fundamental for the existence of all mankind. That is why the United Nations is very key on it. It's one of their SDGs. Springfield takes this very importantly, and we are looking at how we can be a net neutral emission company in the future. Notwithstanding, we need to also understand that energy security is very key for Ghana and for the continent. So the natural resources that we've been blessed with and the fact that technology is used in the energy sector. Technology basically is being used in the energy sector, and I think the energy industry is only second to the space industry when it comes to the use of technology. And what this have done is that it means that now we are producing and exploring our natural resources in a much efficient way. So although we are looking at we are looking at working on clean energy and how we can all, Africa, Ghana can all embrace and be part of this solution. We also need to factor in how to efficiently produce our natural resources that we've been blessed with so that we have energy security for Ghana and for the various countries on the continent. We as Africans, we as Ghanaians can dream big in whatever industry, in whatever sector that we want to, and yet we can still achieve that dream. And I hope I am a good example for anyone that dares to dream. So this is for all the people that dare to dream, who are being, kept away from their dreams, or who have been prevented, or who are shying away. I just say, look, just stay with prayer and persistence, and you would basically be successful.
A huge personality with even bigger ambitions for his company, his country and his continent. It'll be fascinating to follow how Ghana's energy sector develops over the next few years. Hi, I'm Eleni Jokas and this is Connecting Africa. I'm at the site of Expo 2020 in Dubai, and it's still very much a construction site. But when it kicks off in October, it will for the first time ever feature pavilions from every single African country. And the Egypt pavilion behind me is dedicated to highlighting tourism and its vast array of antiquities. When you think of this North African country, many images spring to mind. For some, it's the pyramids. For others, it's the magnificent Nile and the endless excitement and possibilities this stretch of water provides. Let's take a fresh look now to see how farmers are connecting with the rest of the continent. On a vineyard on the outskirts of Cairo, workers harvest beautiful bunches of ripe red grapes. These are being cultivated on a farm owned by the Egyptian Growers Association.
I'm Hussein Marai, and I'm connecting Africa by introducing high-value, high-quality crops into the African market, and by raising the level of expertise by exchanging knowledge with other African countries. The idea behind the cooperative venture is that for the longest time now, exporting fresh fruit and vegetables from Egypt has largely been an individual effort. Individual farms, individual companies, but lately, given the world that we live in and the various obstacles that we face, we found that the road forward requires cooperation. Cooperation between farmers, cooperation between companies, cooperation between people involved in the whole supply chain from farm to table. And the idea behind EGO is to incorporate the different parts of the supply chain together into one organization, one company, to export high-value, high-quality fresh produce around the world.
Grapes, along with citrus fruits like lemons and oranges, are one of Egypt's most widely grown crops. Exports have been increasing consistently, and according to Marais, Africa could become the next big market.
That's not to negate that there any connection to Africa from before. There were a few companies that did export there, but by and large, there's a push these days from the government as well, via subsidies and other incentives, to export into Africa. The country that received the most produce from Egypt is South Africa, because there's a relationship with South Africa that has existed for years now. And that started by sharing technical expertise. South Africa is in the southern hemisphere and Egypt is in the northern hemisphere, so we have opposite seasons. And we benefit each other with these opposite seasons. So when we have grapes, they don't have grapes. When we have oranges, they don't have oranges, and vice versa. So we're able to export to each other and exchange the expertise between us, as we do now with other African countries.
Despite the many difficulties that accompany the production of high-quality food, Murray remains optimistic about Egypt and the rest of the continent's prospects.
So the possibilities offered by Pan-African trade are many. By entering a new market like Africa, by encouraging the trade between African countries, we can develop our agriculture, our means, our technology together. And by doing so, as Africa as a whole, we can start ourselves going to different markets with a better quality of produce. There's definitely change happening. There's a lot of demand coming from countries that we have not expected demand to exist from. There are a lot of farming initiatives that are starting up in African countries, and there's a lot of this exchange of knowledge that is happening. A lot of Egyptians are traveling to African countries that haven't been main travel destinations, let's say, and this exchange of knowledge is happening now as we speak. Africa has a great potential, and it needs to be seen in the future.
Delicious grapes all the way from Cairo to the Cape, opening up new opportunities. After the break, we meet the man who took a risk and bought an African bank. Hello again, and here at the Nigerian Pavilion at Expo 2020, it showcases a country with immeasurable potential and opportunities. Now, back in 2002, Agboje Ig Imukwende saw a gap in the market, took a chance and bought a bank in Nigeria. And his main mission was to reposition Access Bank into a world-class institution in just 5 years. He wrote a book about that time, and we start by listening to him read an extract from his book, recalling as a young boy trying to catch a flight.
When the airport staff announced that the plane was ready for boarding, there was suddenly a mad scramble as the more experienced passengers leapt to their feet and dashed out to get on board. As I struggled towards the plane with my suitcase, I was elbowed out of the way by many people much bigger and stronger than me. By the time I reached the bottom of the steps to the plane, the door at the top had been slammed shut. All the seats haven't been filled. As I stood with my suitcase, watching the plane take off without me, tears streamed down my face, and I vowed that never again would I be left behind on the tarmac while everyone else was flying off. It's a true story, and I think it's the loss of innocence type of experience, for anybody who goes through it. And if it happens to you in kind of an African setting, okay, you know why it happened. You know that things don't work, and you know that this shouldn't happen, okay? And the type of thing that I think you would go through is that, okay, what role do I play going forward? Am I the type that learns this horrible game and ensures I'm not beaten because I master it? Or am I the type that wants to change the game? Or do I avoid the game in all totality? And for me, the one thing that I remember was that, I will not be left on the tarmac, but I have to learn how to do it without mastering this game of cheating and cutting corners and so on. Confidence is one of the words that I like when they use, okay? There are other words I don't really like, but confidence is something that kind of denotes my approach to doing things. And the confidence comes from the fact that I don't embark on things without giving them, serious thought, okay? And so I've thought of this for a while, all right? And I believe that if we can show the Nigerian what Nigeria truly could be, and that actually it doesn't take that much, okay, for us to change the narrative and get there. It's simply a function of good leaders. Think about a gentleman called Michael Jordan in the US. This basketballer that I watched all my life, extremely driven and excelled in ways that you didn't think was humanly possible in the game of basketball. And he makes a lot of money, all right? But Michael Jordan owns a basketball team, and he owns part of other sporting franchises, and it's just a completely different ball game. And so you can actually sense that when you look at the tapes of him playing and leading the Chicago Bulls, all right, I recognize that this individual was not even satisfied by the fact that they were winning NBA championships and so on. All the time he's thinking, I want to own my own team. These were people who won Nobel Prizes. These were people who, as artists, kings and queens, sat for them. Okay? The Nigerian army was an army that excelled whenever they participated in either UN or that's the country I knew. And so the notion of Wakanda, okay, right, I lived it. That's the country I knew. And so as a Nigerian, we had, and I still have, a certain swagger that I can be as good as anybody else can be. So there's no continent actually growing at the population growth rate that Africa is growing. So from a population demographic standpoint, okay, all right. Now, that's our greatest advantage, right? If we make it one market, it could be, in a sense, actually the world's greatest market, okay? That's what we have to focus on. And we have to break down, all those barriers to this operating as the world's largest market. My message, however, is this. The only way to do this is not this notion of that there must be some federated approach to getting entrepreneurs. We must start thinking about the African entrepreneur, not the Nigerian entrepreneur. So if it's a Kenyan in Nigeria, if it's a Nigerian in South Africa, it's a South African in Algeria and so on, okay? They must have every opportunity to wear the shirt for Africa.
Here with my Ghanaian Kente Scarf, we're all about championing Africa's potential on the show. And as the continent opens up like never before, there are new opportunities everywhere. We've enjoyed hearing from some of the people who look set to make the most of those opportunities. We hope you have as well. For more on their stories and those of business leaders like them, please take a look at our website or make sure you follow us on social media. Until next time, stay connected.